Baseball season has arrived. Let's preview the 2024 season. And well, welcome back to New York Sports WickerMedia. I'm Watts UK99. Thank you, as always, for taking the time to watch these videos. So, the 2024 Major League Baseball season is upon us. It is going to get started on Thursday, if you don't count the two-game exhibition series that was played in South Korea. Only Dodgers fans and Padres fans were really paying attention to it, and fantasy players as well. But for the majority of teams, the season starts on Thursday. So what we're going to do today is preview all 30 teams. I'm going to go through each division. I'm going to give you what I am predicting will be the season record for each team, give you a little blurb about them, just a little brief blurb, and we'll do our playoff predictions and a couple of season-ending award predictions as well. Let's get right into it. I'm going to start in the National League with the National League East. As a Mets fan, of course, I'm starting with the National League. In first place, I've got to go with the Atlanta Braves, much as it hurts my soul. And I think they're going to have 97 wins, a 97-165 loss season. Philadelphia, I've got them at 92 wins and taking one of the three wild card spots. I've got the Mets in fourth, 84-78. Miami at 81-81. I've got them at 500. And the Washington Nationals, 72-90, taking dead last by a long shot. Now, the Braves, they have a winning percentage of .547 or better in each of their last 6 seasons. They've won at least 100 games in both of the last 2 years. You've got several MVP caliber bats between Acuna, Olsen, Riley, Albies, and Murphy, also very good as well. Now, of course, as a Mets fan, I expect Jared Kelenic to come in and absolutely rake for them. If he can't do that this year, yes, I will call him an official bust, and I will forgive Brodie Van Wagenen for making that trade way back when. But the pitching staff of the Braves, I still think there's more questions on it than a lot of other people do. They brought in a lot of veterans in Reynaldo Lopez and Chris Sale. You still have Charlie Morton, who's 40 years old. You know, a lot of people love Spencer Strider. I mean, he does strike a lot of people out, but I don't know if he's really that Cy Young, winning pitcher that a lot of other people do. But you know what? There really isn't any reason to think the Braves aren't going to be one of the top 2 teams in the National League. There just isn't, because that lineup just keeps coming at you. As far as the Phillies go, they didn't make a whole lot of changes, which makes sense considering they're a team that's reached the World Series and the NLCS in the last 2 years. There are a few questions in the back of the rotation. Taijuan Walker is hurting now. Ranger Suarez, let's see what he winds up doing. But you still have Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola for the foreseeable future. They both signed extensions. So to me, the Phillies are definitely in position to grab a wild card spot. Now, as far as the Mets go, I've already done a pretty long season preview on the Mets. There's about almost a 30-minute Mets preview video, so if you're a Mets fan, check that out. The Mets seem to be sort of in that middle range of competing now and building for the future. They blew up the team last season, which made sense. They traded off a whole lot of their veterans, but they lose out on Yoshinobu Yamamoto in free agency, and now in their starting rotation, it's being led by Jose Quintana, Luis Severino, Sean Manaea, Adrian Hauser, because you have Kodai Senga injured, and he's probably not going to be back until the end of May, possibly June, with a shoulder capsule injury. And I think that is the limit that the Mets have. I would not be surprised to see a Christian Scott or Mike Vasil get called up. I like the depth of the bullpen, but you know what? I'm worried that bullpen's going to get worn out, because I don't think this is a rotation where you're going to get 6 or 7 innings pitched consistently. The lineup looks a lot better with J.D. Martinez. He'll be coming up in about 2 weeks or so. I just don't think the Mets have the starting pitching to be taken seriously as a contender right now. As far as Miami goes, they made a few changes. Now, Sandy Alcantara is out for the year, which is a big problem for them. They made a few marginal improvements to their batting order, but I don't know. I think it's just, I don't like their bullpen. To me, Tanner Scott is one of the worst closers in baseball. Luis Arias, guys like that, fantastic hitter, no doubt about it. Yeah, there's some pieces there, but there are just some very definitive weaknesses. To me, this is just the epitome of an average team, and I gave them a definitively average record of 81-81. As far as Washington goes, you know what? Their farm system is improving. C.J. Abrams and Keibert Ruiz, you wonder what their ceilings really are at this point. They look like good players, but I don't know about them being cornerstones. Now, they got some of their top prospects coming up in hopefully this year for their sake, but their bullpen does look deep. They gave a lot of I want to say veteran pitchers some minor league deals. A lot of them stepped up. Jacob Barnes, Matt Barnes, Richard Blyer, Derek Law. So if anything, the Nationals should have a pretty good bullpen, but again, they're finishing last in this division. NL Central. Okay, so I am going to say the Chicago Cubs take the NL Central this year with an 89-73 record. The St. Louis Cardinals take second, 84-78. I've got them out of the playoffs. Cincinnati, 82-80. Pittsburgh, 76-86. Milwaukee at 74-88 drops all the way to last place. Now, before the re-signing of Cody Bellinger, I don't know, I might have put the Cubs maybe behind the Cardinals. I might have done that because I felt kind of like with the Mets, the Cubs really had a hole missing in that lineup. And now you have 5 or 6 bats that could get a 700 OPS. Now, the Cubs pitching is interesting. Now, Justin Steele is a trusted frontline starter at this point, came in 5th in the Cy Young voting. But you have some depth with Jameson Taillon, and they signed Shota Imanaga, who I would have been interested in for the Mets. And Kyle Hendricks can eat some innings. So, to me, this is just a very tight division that is filled with mediocre teams. I think the Cubs are going to have just enough to get through, and hey, Craig Counsell is now their manager. So let's see what happens. With the Cardinals, starting pitching was their biggest problem. Now, they got Sonny Gray, but he's hurt right now. They also added Kyle Gibson. They added Lance Lynn. So I think that's going to allow St. Louis to be competitive in close games, especially considering they have a very good defense behind them. You know, I don't see the Cardinals winning more than a round in the playoffs, but considering how disappointing they were last year, that would be a step in the right direction. Now, the Reds, that's an intriguing team. So they are kind of working with this accelerated rebuild. All right, they added Jeimer Candelario to replace Joey Votto, and there's some intriguing upside with some young players like Matt McClain, though he's hurt, Spencer Steer, Jonathan India, Noel V. Marte. Oh, Noel V. Marte is suspended 80 games for PEDs. Ellie De La Cruz, that's a bit of a wild card. You know, in his last 220 plate appearances last year, he struck out 34.5% of the time. That's even worse than Mark Vientos, and batted 200. So we really don't know what he is. Now, the pitching on the Reds, it's got a higher ceiling than it's had before. So you can't rule Cincinnati out for a central title. I just don't know if they have the pitching to hang in there. Pittsburgh, I think, could be a little bit of a surprise team. I think they're going to take a little step up this year. You know, they haven't even won 80 games since 2018. Now, they have some very talented players in Brian Reynolds, O'Neal Cruz, Cabrian Hayes, Mitch Keller. Henry Davis, that's an interesting player. He could get the club's win total up. He could add a little bit of excitement. There's a little question if he's going to stay a catcher or if he's going to be an outfielder. But I think that is one player that could sort of break out this year is Henry Davis of the Pirates. Now, as far as Milwaukee goes, this pitching to me has gone from an absolute strength to a weakness. Corbin Burns is in Baltimore. Brandon Woodruff is out for the season. Freddie Peralta is going to be the opening day starter against the Mets. And in the bullpen, they used to have a great 1-2 punch, and Josh Hader and Devin Williams. Well, we know Hader has been gone for a little bit now, but Devin Williams is going to miss at least 2 months with multiple stress fractures in his back. Now, the Brewers lineup might be better with Rhys Hoskins in a cleanup. You have Jackson Chourio, rookie phenom. He's going to be playing outfield. But I feel like the decline in pitching is just going to be too much for them to overcome. I think that's really going to drop the Brewers in the standings. And then we go to the National League West. So I've got the Dodgers, I think, as everybody does, and I've got them with 96 wins and having the best record in the National League. I've got the San Francisco Giants, 88-74. I've got them getting a wild card spot, the second wild card. And I've got the San Diego Padres making the playoffs as well with an 85-77 record. I think they edge out the Cardinals and the Mets for that last spot, and the Diamondbacks. I got the Diamondbacks 1 game back at 84-78. I think this National League wild card race is going to be awesome. And finally, the Colorado Rockies, 70 and 92. I just have no confidence in them at all. Now, how much do we really need to say about the Dodgers that the hype machine hasn't already said, right? You know, they added Yamamoto, they added Shohei Ohtani, and for a time his interpreter as well. They added Tyler Glasnow into the rotation. Clayton Kershaw will eventually be back. Walker Buehler will be back. I do wonder the whole situation with Ohtani, if that is going to weigh on the team as the season goes on. But the Dodgers do have a deep farm system, so if anything comes up, if anybody gets hurt, they can bring some players up. You know, you still have Freddie Freeman, James Outman, Will Smith, just a deep, deep team. No question about it. San Francisco, I got to give them credit. They finally started signing some free agents. So they have committed over $320 million to 6 free agents. Jung-Hoo Lee, a very good outfielder came over from Japan. Blake Snell, Matt Chapman, Jorge Soler, Jordan Hicks, and Tom Murphy. Oh, and they added on another $74 million by acquiring Robbie Ray, the left-handed starting pitcher from the Mariners. So when you have Snell and Webb at the top of your rotation, that is fantastic. And then you have a good rookie in Kyle Harrison. Also, Alex Cobb looks to be a pretty good bounce-back candidate as well. So I'm pretty high on the Giants. I think they're going to be a pretty good squad this year. As far as San Diego goes, it's kind of the end of an era. They started slashing some payroll, but I don't know. Pitching is kind of the big thing now that they've lost. They had lost Snell, but they just made the big trade with the White Sox to get Dylan Cease, and that actually got me a little bit higher on them than I was before. But we know that the lineup is still very, very good with Bogarts and Machado and Tatis and so on, and Cronenworth. But with that lineup and the bullpen, I think the Padres have enough to contend for a wild card spot. Arizona, man, you got to give them credit for staying aggressive. And they've added Eduardo Rodriguez, and in the last few days, Jordan Montgomery to the rotation. They added Eugenio Suarez and Jock Peterson to the lineup. That's going to give them some of the pop that they need. It'll take down the on-base a little bit, but this team did need a little bit more power. So I can understand why they made the moves that they did. I don't know if they could repeat what they did last year, but they'll still be a very formidable club to deal with. On the opposite end of that spectrum is Colorado. I think they're going to be about the worst team in the National League. Their pitching was never good, and now several of their pitchers already need elbow surgeries. A rebuild is very much needed over there. Enough said about the Rockies. All right, so that's the National League. Let's turn the page and talk about the American League. Starting in the Eastern Division, I've got the Baltimore Orioles winning the Eastern Division with an 89-73 record. The Yankees, I've got them one game behind at 88-74 and making the playoffs. Tampa Bay, I've got 500, 81 up, 81 down. Toronto, I've got at 80 wins and 82 losses. And the Red Sox, not their year, 74-88. So I'm going with the Orioles for a couple of reasons. Number one, the addition of Corbin Burns, the anchor at the front of that staff that they absolutely needed. You know, the Orioles, in my opinion, they are younger, they are deeper, they can acquire just about any piece that they need to at the trade deadline, and I just really happen to like that young core a lot. As far as the Yankees go, if Garrett Cole wasn't injured, I'd probably put the Yankees at 93 or 94 wins. The lineup is fantastic when you add not just Juan Soto, but also Alex Verdugo. John Birdie is a very nice bench piece that was just acquired as well. But I wonder about that bullpen. I don't know if it can be trusted. Is Clay Holmes a reliable closer against the best teams? All right, and the fact that Cole, we don't know when he's going to be back, it's a lot to ask. And outside of that, I'm not a big fan of most of this pitching rotation. Carlos Rodon is an injury waiting to happen. Marcus Stroman is one of the biggest hotheads ever. If you haven't been blocked by him, it's because you haven't messaged him. And Nestor Cortez is fine, but that's your opening day starter? I don't know. I got the Yankees making the playoffs. I still think they'll be good, but one game back of Baltimore. Tampa Bay, now they are the overachievers every single season, right? They always seem to defy the odds and make a good run. Well, Wander Franco is never playing baseball again in all likelihood. Tyler Glasnow is gone, and over the last couple of weeks of spring training, the injury bug is not biting, it's attacking. Johnny DeLuca, Josh Lau, starting pitchers, Taj Bradley, also Jonathan Aranda, an infielder. All of them expected to play key roles for the club. They are injured, and they entered spring training knowing they'd be without Shane McClanahan, Shane Baz, Jeffrey Springs, Drew Rasmussen, and Taylor Walls on opening day. Could they make a wild card spot? Sure, they always could, but I think the fact that the AL East is getting better at the top, that it's more than just the Yankees, I just think they're going to take a little bit of a dip. Now, Toronto is kind of like the no longer trendy pick. They were kind of like the it team for a little while. They basically made 2 additions this year. They added Justin Turner as designated hitter. They added cup holders to the Rogers Center. That's about it. Outside of that, ownership and management is banking on the same roster doing their jobs after a down year in 2023. But they didn't add really any impact additions outside of Turner, so I'm going to give them 4th place. And as far as Boston goes, they don't seem to really care about competing this year. When players and front office executives are complaining about the lack of commitment from ownership to improving the roster, that highlights organizational dysfunction. They've got, outside of Rafael Devers, and I'll give you Trevor Story, how many just decent baseball fans, average baseball fans, can name 5 Red Sox players that are going to be on the opening day roster? Think about it. It's pretty crazy. Lucas Giolito, they signed him. He's out for the year. I don't know why they didn't sign Jordan Montgomery. To me, he would have made a whole lot of sense. But, the bottom of the lineup, the rotation, to me, are both abysmal. So I got the Red Sox in last. On to the Central, I've got the Minnesota Twins winning the division at 85-77. The Cleveland Guardians at 83-79, missing the playoffs. Detroit, I've got at 80-82. Kansas City 74-88, and the Chicago White Sox at 71-91. I think I'm actually being a little too nice to them, but that's what I have. Now with Minnesota, they're not going to have a whole lot of competition in my mind. Cleveland has good pitching. They'll put up a fight. I think Detroit is on the rise. But, the Twins have a 600-plus winning percentage in 3 of their last 5 years. Lost a few players, but they've got a lot of infield depth to replace a Jorge Polanco. And when your rotation is anchored by, you have Pablo Lopez and Joe Ryan, supported by a really, really good bullpen, I think that's enough to just get in. As far as Cleveland goes, they haven't really made many changes here. Now, they have declined 16 games from 2022 to 2024. Nothing was done to improve the outfield or the lack of power, and I think Shane Bieber could very well be dealt by July, as he's a free agent after this season. So, they do have 2 very good prospects in Chase DeLauder and Kyle Manzardo. They were the talk of camp. Maybe they'll get called up. I think Cleveland's going to have an okay season, but they're just missing some stuff right now. Detroit, I think they're a team on the rise. I could see them winning this division next year, even though they've made a few mistakes along the way. See the Javier Baez contract. But they have a pretty good rotation led by Tariq Skubal, hope I pronounced that right, that has now Jack Flaherty and Casey Mize. It's pretty good. And they've added some veterans to the lineup, some real pros in Gio Urshela and Mark Hanna. I'm not bold enough to say they're going to have a winning record. I think that time will come in 2025. Now with Kansas City, hey, they're trying. They're putting some effort in there. They lost 106 games last year. Now they've got something resembling a major league rotation. And near the top of the lineup, you've got MJ Melendez, Bobby Witt Jr., Vinny Pasquantino. That's a pretty good, combination at the top of your lineup. But I don't know. The bottom of the batting order is bad, and I don't know how many. I don't know how good this pitching staff is going to be. They'll be better than last year, though. With the White Sox, well, they finally traded Dylan Cease. I guess we could say the rebuild is in full-blown gear. I only wonder how long it's going to be until they trade Luis Robert. I don't need to say anything else more about the South Side, except I look forward to going there in August. And then in the West, very, very interesting division. Well, I've got Houston winning it at 92-70. I've got Texas at 88-74, and Seattle at 87-75. Both those teams clinching wild cards. Anaheim at 72-90, and Oakland at 68-94. What I like about Houston is Joe Espada was hired as manager, and he is already getting rave reviews. And as beat up as the Astros rotation was last year, they still almost reached the World Series. So now, you have Altuve, you have Alvarez, Bregman, Tucker. They could all be all-stars very easily. Now, I don't know if this is the best roster in the last few years. I think the fact that Texas did beat them out and won the World Series, that might be a little bit of a kick that they need to maybe light the fire that have become a little bit complacent. All right, so I got Houston winning the division. I've got Texas in second place. Now, you got to love the lineup with Seager returning from injury. We know the depth that's there. Wyatt Langford is their new DH, and everybody seems to love him. But the rotation is still going to be tested. No more Jordan Montgomery. He's left for Arizona. Max Scherzer and Jacob deGrom will be sidelined for probably half the season. You know, they are pretty similar to the team that they had last year. I wonder if they have enough. I think they're going to have a slow start, and then they'll put on a pretty furious rally. But they'll make playoffs. I like Seattle and what they're doing. You know, they have an overhauled lineup, and I think what management was trying to do was reduce the strikeout-prone run producers, and who they invested in were players like Mitch Garver, Mitch Haniger, Jorge Polanco. And also, hey, Seattle has one of the best starting rotations baseball has to offer, and over a 162-game season, that's probably as important as anything is. Now, the bullpen is dealing with some injuries. That is a concern, but I think when you look at that rotation and the firepower that has been added to the lineup, I think they're going to make a wild card spot. As far as the Angels go, aside from adding Ron Washington as manager, what reason for excitement is there? With Ohtani gone, Mike Trout a year older, Anthony Rendon still can't figure out if he really wants to play or not. You know, they might have a decent lineup, but it just doesn't matter when you have one of the worst pitching staffs in baseball, and Trout is getting more injury-prone as the years go on. And as far as Oakland goes, my heart goes out to them. There just isn't much to say except the fans deserve better. You know, Ryan Noda, Zach Gelof, Shea Langoliers might provide some future hope, but this is the worst roster in baseball, and yeah, John Fisher might be responsible for a lot of baseball teams picking up some players and picking up some wins this year. So those are my standings. Now, as far as the playoffs, I'm just going to give you the League Championship Series and the World Series. I've got Houston over Baltimore. I've got the Dodgers over the Braves, meaning it's a Houston-LA World Series, and I like Houston to claim the World Series for 2024. A couple of quick awards. I've got Yordan Alvarez as the MVP in the AL from the Astros, Bryce Harper as the MVP of the NL from the Phillies. I'm getting a little bit bold with the Cy Young. I'm going to say George Kirby of the Seattle Mariners will be the Cy Young winner this year. And it can't be any worse than my last year's prediction. Last year I thought it'd be Alek Manoah, and he wound up down in the minor leagues. That pick did not work out very well. And for the Cy Young in the NL, I'm going to go with Max Fried from the Braves. Got a contract year coming up, 30 years old. I think he is really going to anchor the staff. Rookies of the year, I'm going to go with Wyatt Langford from Texas and Jackson Chourio from Milwaukee. The same Jackson Chourio who signed an 8-year, $82 million contract without even playing a single day of Major League Baseball. All right, those are my predictions and picks for the 2024 MLB season. If you have any thoughts, if you have any predictions, put them right down there in the comments. Thanks, everybody, for watching, and I'll see you right back here with more content from you know where. The Wicker Chair.